Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Adrienne Elrod back with us today. We'll chat with Adrienne shortly, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. All right, let's get to the big thing this week, and we'll start with this clip.
To that rally, had you been able?
That's a good question. I probably would have. Yeah. I don't live in New York City, so I wouldn't have.
One day after the slaughter of 1,200 people and taking of over 200 hostages, you would have come and rallied behind Hamas.
I think that October 7th was largely inevitable. If you put people in an open-air concentration camp and you deprive them of rights, of dignity, of food, of the ability to live in safety, you have to expect that they are going to not take that for that long. And that is not defending any harm of civilians or of non-combatants.
Well, sure
that
is.
Do you think it is?
You're saying you're supporting it.
I'm saying that I think it was inevitable.
That was Megan Romer, national co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, commonly known as the DSA. And she basically was saying that she would have joined in New York City an anti-Israel rally the day after the horrific October 7th attacks in 2023. Totally showing support for Hamas, totally blaming Israel, in a sense, for the attack itself that day. The conversation I want to have with you guys is not what she said, because she's just a quack. Conversation I want to have is that we have the most critical election coming up in less than 3 months. And by all measures, by even some of the most conservative analysis, Democrats not only have a fantastic chance to win back control of the House, but actually take the Senate as well. Typically, Democrats have had an uncanny knack from snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And so my concern is that this Israel crazy talk that is dividing the Democratic Party, are we setting ourselves up for that to happen in November?
The reality is that Israel is a great unifier of hate on both sides, both the right and the left. But honestly, in reality, I do think that primary season is coming to a close, and there's enough time between now and November for the Democrats to come together and put this aside and unify. I'm very hopeful. I really think that this part of the Israel intra-party fighting is coming to a close. I really believe that.
I think I just want to comment. Megan Romer is an idiot. In that interview with David Remnick, she said so many stupid things. She should be pushed out of the DSA. That's separate. That what we just played was insane and idiotic. And people like Mamdani on October 10th of 2023 spoke out against that rally before he was ever running for mayor. She does not speak for many people who identify themselves as Democratic Socialists. And also the party doesn't even speak for them, because someone like Bernie Sanders self-identifies as a Democratic Socialist, but he is not part of the National Party. He specifically says he's not. So there's a lot of different mixing up of what the progressive candidates are in DSA and what they're not. And we have definitely seen Mamdani and AOC bring themselves out of some of that with their recent statements about how they do not believe in defunding the police, et cetera, et cetera. That said, on the Israel issue, as far as the base of the Democratic Party, it's 65% favorable towards Palestinians, 17% favorable towards Israel. And that's the same for independents, are overwhelmingly in favor of Palestine over Israel. And it's changing the Republicans too. So from a political standpoint, speaking out against Israel doesn't really hurt anybody in the Democratic Party.
Well, I don't think I agree with that. I mean, we see moderate candidates winning all over the country, and they're winning for a reason.
When you say it doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't it hurt Jews? I mean, wait. So when you say it doesn't hurt anybody, that's not true.
I'm talking about politically. I said, politically speaking, it is not going to hurt a candidate to speak out against Israel in the Democratic Party.
The nuancing you said before, while perhaps true that, Bernie is like a legit DSA, Megan Romer isn't, and I agree with that, Republicans aren't going to deal with that shit.
Republicans aren't going to vote for a Democrat anyway.
No. What I'm saying is the Republican Party, Republican candidates, they play that clip just like we did, and they go, folks, this is your choice. Someone who says they would have marched for Hamas the day after the mini Holocaust in Israel, or Mike Rogers. That's the problem, because that is going to hurt a lot of people if they succeed with that rhetoric. And so when you see people like Megan Romer and others, Abdul El-Sayed, his positions on Israel, I don't want to give any weapons to Israel, even defensive ones like the Iron Dome missile defense system. That speaks to a lot of Jews in this country. Not all Jews are running with a DSA flag, okay? They're not all running with an anti-Israel flag. And so I don't want to see happen yet again where my fellow Jews are like, yeah, fuck these guys, but because of Israel, I got to vote for Republicans. That's how we get Trump in the White House, with that kind of thinking. So we have to be very careful here if it's establishment versus other. The other needs to be very careful that we do not fixate on an issue which is not what the average American is concerned about right now. Ask those people on a scale of 1 to 10, where does that issue rank with you when people care about affordability, gas prices, grocery prices, housing costs, health care, education, et cetera, et cetera? That's not what people care about. I don't give a shit about anything this coming November. Not one thing except winning. And if winning requires us to talk about affordability, because that's what America is telling us is their number one problem, that's what the party should be talking about. I'm not denying the other issues aren't important, but that's for another time.
I think that candidates can walk and chew gum at the same time. And also
Democrats have not shown that we can do that. Okay.
Elections are local, and where issues are different.
Well, Israel's not a local issue.
However, Israel is a national issue, and I think that talking passionately about it activates the young base that they want to get out and vote, which is shown in the last several elections to come out very strongly. It helped elect Mamdani. It helped elect Joe Biden. And also the black vote. The black vote in places like Georgia is very important. And we've seen that they are very, very pro-Palestine.
The black vote is a problem with progressives and DSA. That is a fact. But I want to just jump back to a second. We just had Dr. Annie Andrews on this podcast last week. She's running to flip Lindsey Graham's seat. When I asked her about the issue of Israel, do you remember what she said to me? She said, when I'm out there campaigning, no one's talking to me about this issue. Mm-hmm. They're talking to me about affordability. They're talking to me about farming. They're talking to me about gas prices and grocery prices. That's what they're concerned about. When we talk about DSA and the anti-Israel candidates, where have we seen that largely happen? We've seen it happen in big cities, safely Democrat. Now, Michigan, on the other hand, is a toss-up. We could potentially take the Senate back. That seat is critical. And I'd hate to see the Democrats pick up seats. I'd hate to see Sherrod Brown win in Ohio and Roy Cooper win in North Carolina and Talarico flip Texas and Troy Jackson up in Maine, Josh Turek in Iowa, Dan Osborne in Nebraska, Mary Peltola in Alaska. Now, if those people won, but we lost the Senate, we lost Michigan, because for the next 2.5 months, Abdul El-Sayed keeps talking about Israel. There's a reason why, they say move to the center after the primaries. You have to be the candidate for all people. Everyone in your district is your constituent. And with someone like Abdul El-Sayed, that has to include Jews. That has to include pro-Israel people. Has to include everybody. And he in particular has an issue with the black population in Michigan, and he's going to need to fix that. And so what I don't believe in is purity tests and incendiary rhetoric and appealing to only a certain part of your constituency. That is the very definition of divisiveness, and that's what kills elections.
My prediction is that primary season is almost done. I'm trying to think. The prominence of how much Israel has been talked about was really helpful during the primaries. I really don't think that this is going to be the number one issue or even the number 3 issue. I don't know how much we're going to move to the middle, but I do think that the Democrats are going to talk about a different platform than the Republicans. If everyone agrees about hating Israel, it's not really interesting. There are real differences between Democrats and Republicans. I think you're going to see that. I feel very positively that it's going to be more economic.
Think about it this way. In appealing to independents and moderate Republicans, can Republican candidates really talk about how well they've done on the economy? Republican candidates who are out there desperate to win, because we know they're desperate, right? Mm-hmm. Can they campaign on how well this administration and this Republican-controlled Congress has dealt with the affordability issue?
Sure they can. They can just say it's Joe Biden's fault like they do with everything else.
I'm saying legitimately, because that's not going to work with voters, which is why the approval is so low. So I'm just asking logically, can they go out and do that? But they can appeal to the independents and moderate Republicans who love Israel and protecting Israel. For Israel and as it relates to our own national security.
I think that's...
And that's a winning issue for them.
I'm not sure. Okay. I don't know if that's true right now because of the war with Iran. And so I think that the times they are changing. And if Democrats are smart and strategic, they will stay with the party line. Keep it simple, stupid. It's the economy.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right, too.
I completely agree that affordability is the number one issue for the Democrats because clearly nothing is affordable, and it's become less affordable under Trump. There are other issues that they will talk about, and including Israel, and it isn't going to hurt them.
Famous last words. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
I have 2 winners. My first winner, Judge Indira Telwani, who entered a nationwide order blocking the Postal Service from carrying out Trump's efforts to assert federal control over mail-in voting policies ahead of the election. My second winner, go see Cookie Queens, a delightful documentary that features 4 Girl Scouts and lets you easily forget about politics for an hour and a half.
My winner is Harvard University for showing you how to actually fight and beat Trump's trumped-up anti-Semitism charges. Columbia and other schools which caved should really take notes. My loser is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. In just 167 days, the U.S. has lost a war of choice with a country that essentially has no Navy, no Air Force, and we've managed to exhaust our entire global inventory of advanced munitions. History will not be kind.
My winner, David Crowley, who after suspending his campaign for Wisconsin governor, re-entered the race and defeated Democratic Socialist and Thanksgiving-hating Francesca Hong in Tuesday's primary, after trailing last week in the polls by double digits. My loser, Donald Trump, who we learned this week was all too happy to potentially sacrifice cabinet members, senior aides, and the White House press corps to a potential mid-air deadly terrorist attack after the Secret Service uncovered an assassination attempt on the president's life and whisked him off secretly in a catering truck to another plane without telling those on the original Air Force One flight, which took off as planned, that they were being used as human decoys. And that gets us to the weekly rant. So I want to talk about Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who voted in 2021 to impeach Trump in his second trial over the January 6th insurrection and was primaried out of his job this summer by a vindictive Trump. And he recently cast the deciding vote to confirm Todd Blanche as U.S. Attorney General, and last year cast the deciding vote to confirm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS Secretary, thus putting this dangerous vaccine hater in charge of our nation's health. And what do you know? No doubt urged on by Kennedy, Donald Trump on Monday signed an executive order on the childhood vaccine schedule, which included splitting the MMR vaccine into separate measles, mumps, and rubella shots, requiring 3 separate doctor visits now for children. The order was not only based on false claims, but could actually put children's health at greater risk of contracting these diseases. Consider what the pathetic, tone-deaf coward Cassidy posted this week following Trump's executive order. Quote, "I'm a doctor. This executive order is wrong. The president does not have the expertise to make these changes. Vaccines are overwhelmingly safe. Vaccines are effective. Vaccines do not cause autism." Let's be crystal clear here. There'd be no executive order on vaccines without Kennedy. And there'd be no Kennedy without Cassidy. Shame on him for now feigning professional and moral outrage over Kennedy's actions. As a doctor, he knew Kennedy was unqualified, yet he voted to confirm him anyway. Also consider what Cassidy told a reporter this week when asked if he regretted his vote on Kennedy. Quote, "RFK told me he was not going to change the advisory committee on immunization practices. So if you want to tell me somebody didn't tell me the truth and I should have seen in the future that they were not going to tell the truth, you could say, 'Oh, Bill, you should have seen into the future.' In which case, I'd be on your show talking about the futures of stocks as opposed to vaccine policy." Again, shame on him. Because as a physician, he could see into the future with regard to Kennedy. He just chose to close his eyes and please his orange master instead. All right, let's get to Adrienne Elrod. She's a political strategist, government affairs expert, and communicator with over 25 years of experience working on Capitol Hill, the executive branch, and advising corporate, political, and nonprofit organizations. She most recently served as senior advisor and senior spokesperson to Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. She held this same position for President Biden's re-election campaign. She's also a veteran of the Biden administration. She served as Director of External and Government Affairs for the CHIPS Program Office. And during the 2020 general election, she served as a top aide to Biden's general election campaign. A native of Arkansas, she began her political career in President Bill Clinton's administration, serving in both the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. On the 2016 presidential campaign, she served as Hillary for America's Director of Strategic Communications, and she was a senior communications aide to Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. She's also a frequent contributor to NBC News and MS Now. Adrienne, welcome back into the back room.
Great to be back with you, Andy.
So I want to start off with just a couple of things in the immediate news, and then I want to talk to you about the midterms and Democrats and Republicans and all that good stuff. Caroline Leavitt, is she leaving for any particular reason, in your opinion?
I don't know. Look, I mean, she's been there for what, about close to a little under 2 years. Jen Psaki, who's a dear friend of mine, and I think, frankly, the best White House press secretary that we've ever seen in this country, was there for about 18 months. So, look, it is a grueling job, Andy. I think that, it's hard to underestimate how much prep goes in. And look, I don't think Caroline is nearly as good as Jen Psaki, and I think we all know that she lies from the podium and that she is not always truthful, but you can tell that she does a lot of prep, and she has 2 young kids. I'm not going to speculate into why. I do think, if you're sort of alluding to Trump abandoning his team when he was put on a different plane, and as a mother of 2 young kids, including an infant, I would be offended by that. But I'm not going to go into the speculation. I just think it's a grueling job, especially as a young mother, and I hope she goes on to enjoy private life.
Yeah, I mean, there is that speculation, especially when you factor in who he did choose to take on that
Correct
plane, the other woman in his life, so to speak. And I don't know, Caroline Leavitt to me always struck me as someone who not only is super smart, super articulate, super
very, very smart,
efficient at what she does, but somebody who you don't want to cross.
No, absolutely. Look, I think she, even though she does not always tell the truth, I think if you are the president of the United States and you are looking for someone who's going to go up there and do your bidding every single day, unflinchingly, strong defense, she is about as good as it gets. Even if you are not always telling the truth, but she's probably doing what she has to do because the president has told her that she has to say these things. She's incredibly effective. I still give Jen Psaki props for being the GOAT White House press secretary, but Caroline has done, she's done her job very effectively. And again, I think no matter how well someone does their job and how naturally talented somebody is at the podium, at the end of the day, it is still a very exhausting job that it takes a toll on your family, it takes a toll on, your personal life. I mean, I feel like I don't get enough sleep and I, do maybe 3 TV hits a week. I'm not standing at the podium in front of a bunch of reporters all day. So I think she deserves to go spend some time with her family. I would also, if I were her, I'd be offended that Trump did not choose me to be on that plane. But, maybe she's also just tired of, the daily grind.
Yeah. Well, it's something all of his cabinet people and aides have to go through. They have to constantly defend the indefensible and stretch the truth, spin, lie, obfuscate, whatever, pick your poison. But I wonder, I don't know if you had heard this, but when he was interviewed at some point, maybe it was a tarmac interview or some gaggle, he said, "No, I told everybody, if I go, you go," which was a complete lie. So again, if you're Carolyn Levitt and you're upset as it is, and then you hear the lie, I can't say that if that's the case. I can't blame her,
And you know what, by the way, if she is leaving for that reason, regardless of why she's leaving, good for letting the speculation be the speculation from her standpoint. Because there are ways to basically tell him that I don't approve of your decision. I was hurt by your decision without actually saying it overtly. And look, she's not even 30 years old. The woman has got a very bright future in front of her no matter what she does. And I'm sure she will also do very well financially on the outside too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Better get that 18 months over with and move on and spend more time with your family.
Yeah. Let's talk about that whole episode. I mean, now there's talk that it may have been overblown. It wasn't a real assassination threat, but let's assume it was. How crazy was it for that original Air Force One to take off with let's call it what it was, human decoys from the fourth in line to
I can't get over.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that?
Look, I'm never going to the Secret Service has certainly had issues, as we all know, but they have protocols, and I am grateful to our law enforcement, to our security, as somebody who has flown quite a few times on Air Force One with the former president of the United States and with President Clinton back in the day. I certainly am so grateful for the security that the Secret Service and our law enforcement provides. What I don't understand is exactly how that was allowed to take place, because to your point, there were human decoys. So are their lives not? Yes, of course, when you're the president of the United States, the Secret Service's job is to protect the president at all costs, no matter what. And that is the only person they are really protecting. But at the end of the day, you're still putting people on this plane. And the plane is flying, and it is not deemed safe enough for the president. So I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know all the details, obviously, but I would be very offended, especially if I found out after the fact that I was on the plane, but it wasn't deemed safe enough for the president, and the plane was still allowed to take off with me on it. Again, think about that. If you're going back to Caroline Levitt, mother of 2 young children, a young mother herself, a daughter, someone who has a bright future in front of you, I would be extremely offended. And I would be hurt, and I would be pissed. So I don't know all the details. And it wasn't just, Caroline Levitt who was on the plane. There were other people too, but it just feels a little suspicious to me. And I don't know. If I had been in that shoes as a staffer, I'd be pretty ticked off.
Yeah, look, they whisked him away in that catering cart truck and put him on another plane, supposedly without the knowledge of the Iranians, who were allegedly out to assassinate him. So for all intents and purposes, Air Force One, the original plane that took off, was still a target. And I that man has done so many unconscionable things, but I just can't wrap my arms around that. I mean, if that doesn't say to anyone who works for him, I literally don't care if you live or die. Literally, you're here to serve me, period, end of story. But, nothing shocks me anymore.
I can tell you this. For the 2 former presidents I've had the honor and privilege of working for, President Bill Clinton, President Joe Biden, and obviously traveling with Secretary Clinton when she ran in 2008 and 2016. I know all three of those principals, if they had been in the same situation, would have said, wait a minute. What about my team? What about my staff? What about the traveling press corps? They would want to ensure that before anything was done on their part, that mitigations were made to ensure the safety of everyone.
Yeah, ground the plane.
Ground the plane, get a different plane, do exactly what they did with Trump or have a different way. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
The point is, make sure that everyone is safe. You don't have a decoy plane with other people on it, not as decoys, but as people that you're leading to safety. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the elections, the upcoming midterms, the races that we've just seen, won and lost. This whole establishment versus progressive / socialist /
DSA.
Yeah. And how much of this to you is real or a hyperbole? We're seeing moderates win all over the country. We're seeing in isolated cases, we're seeing progressives win. We're seeing a couple of DSA wins here and there. We're also seeing someone like Francesca Hong lose. We're seeing Abdul El Sayed win narrowly, barely, win and lose barely. What do you make of this? Is this something that Democrats like me who sit and watch this and go, is my party about to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory again?
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, here's a couple of things. I think, first of all, you laid it out perfectly. There are progressives, there are DSA candidates, there are establishment, there are normies, there are incumbents. Some of those all fit the same bill. But at the end of the day, it really is a case-by-case basis. I mean, New York City, for example, that did elect a couple of DSA candidates for Congress in the primaries, and of course, Mayor Mondani. New York City is filled with young people who cannot afford rent, who cannot afford health care, who cannot afford groceries, who are frustrated and are also, tend to be like very educated voters as well. So the DSA model of sort of like, let me make your life better, no matter what it does to the deficit, what it does to the budget, no matter if we can pay, if the government can pay for it or if the government goes in debt to do it, like that is one bucket, right? And then you're seeing other places like Peggy Flanagan, who is more, unless I missed something, I think she's more in the progressive lane, not a DSAer. Mm-hmm. She did beat Angie Craig, who, by the way, I really adore. I'm sitting here at my house in Arkansas. I have a home down here, and she went to the University of Arkansas. So, she's not from here, but she's sort of, we call her one of our own. So I was disappointed to see that because I think she's been an incredibly effective member. But look, that's what the Minnesota voters wanted. That's what they chose. That's different from DSA. And then you look at El Sayed defeating Haley Stevens in the Senate primary in Michigan. He's made it very clear he's a capitalist. I'm not sitting here to defend everything that come out of his mouth. I don't like, the vibes that he seems to have had in the past with Hassan Piker. I think that goes down the dangerous slope. But at the end of the day, he is somebody who's made it very clear, I am not DSA. I am very pro-capitalist, and I want to try to, unify the party. We'll see if that happens. So it's a long way of saying you're seeing all these different scenarios play out, but the Republicans, and mark my words, Andy, we will see this starting right after Labor Day. They will start pummeling ads all over the country, especially in these swing areas, where they will say every single candidate running on the ballot, James Tallarico, Roy Cooper in North Carolina, Troy Jackson in Maine, you name it, Mary Peltola in Alaska. They will paint them all as Democratic Socialist candidates. They will use ridiculous examples that have nothing to do with those races. And this is what we're going to have to face. So it's the modern day transgender, this is now the transgender issue of 2026. And I'm sure they'll also throw in some transgender rights issues in there too. I think, Andy, it's a long way of saying, I think it's more of an anti-incumbent issue. I think people are frustrated with the status quo. A lot of people don't have the alternative of a progressive candidate who's not a DSA, or they only have a DSA alternative against an incumbent Democrat on the ticket. And they tend to go with the person who is not the incumbent because they're just frustrated with Washington. It's not just a Democratic issue. It's more of a Republican issue than a Democratic issue. But I think there's a lot of voter discontentment with putting trust and faith in incumbents. And there is this mentality of blow up the system. And if the person on the ballot running the Democratic primary is not the incumbent, whether they can count themselves as a DSA candidate or a progressive or whatever they count themselves as being, they in some areas will get the vote.
Is it also a generational thing? Like when you see John Larson in Connecticut, I think he's 80 years old. He lost his primary.
Yeah.
Because that's how I see it too.
Me too. And look, there are not many, I mean, there are some exceptions, but there are not many 75-year-olds winning primaries for the first time, winning as non-incumbents who are first-time candidates running for Congress. There are not many people really over the age of, 65, 70. So I do think it's a generational thing. And by the way, good for some voters who have that mentality. Like, I do wish that we could get rid of some folks who have been serving for far too long. It's good to have some new blood. It's good to have some fresh ideas. It's also good to have some institutional knowledge. So we don't want to completely blow up the system. But you see people in the Senate, Chris Murphy, Brian Schatz, some really strong candidates or senators who would like to take the leadership mantle, would like to have more of a say in the direction of our party. And they do on their own platforms. But I think until you actually, move on from the current leadership in the Senate, it's hard for them to have a role. So I'm all for it. I know I don't support DSA. I'm a very middle of the road normie Democrat, as they say, they now like to call us, not establishment, but normie. But I do think that some new blood and some younger voices in both the House, Senate, and some of these governorships across the country and Congress is a good thing for this country.
Yeah. Well, speaking of governorships, how do you explain what happened with David Crowley? I mean, he suspended his race, came back into the race, had a double-digit deficit, and beats Francesca Hong.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, everyone was almost felt like it was a foregone conclusion that Francesca was going to win this thing. And everyone was like, oh man, what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. But look, Andy, you know this just as well as I do. It's not over until the voters speak.
Right.
And until they count their ballots and their ballots are counted.
And what are they saying? What did they say in Wisconsin that could maybe be broadened to the national landscape with regard to this conversation about establishment versus whatever?
Look, I think that they made it very clear that, sure, we're open to new ideas. We're excited for fresh new voices, but we're not willing to go as far as Francesca Hong, who made some very divisive statements. And of course, the one that is really making the rounds is wanting to get rid of Thanksgiving, which is somebody who
I can
really
see getting rid of
Thanksgiving.
cranberry sauce, but the entire holiday? I mean, come on.
And do not get rid of my mother's amazing dressing that she makes every year. That must always stay. So, I think to a certain point, people are like, look, I'm all for new faces, new voices, but I do have some limits.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because I don't want to make a joke out of the Thanksgiving thing, because I think it's easy to do that. I'd rather ask you, what possesses someone who's running for governor in a critical state say we should cancel Thanksgiving, and then step back and go, yeah, that's something I should be saying. That's going to help me in this campaign.
That's going to help me in this campain.
How do you do that?
And then they tried to say, oh, she's a small business owner. She, is a I think a single mom. I don't want to say that for sure, but I think that they painted her as one of the people, and she feels your pain because she is a small business owner. She works at a restaurant. And when she can, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think even Wisconsin voters who, tend to be primary voters in Wisconsin tend to be more quote unquote progressive than in some other states. But I think she was a step too far. And, at a certain point, all these little anecdotes, whether they're, sometimes they take a life of their own, they can have an impact on voters' minds.
Sure.
And I'm just really grateful the primary turned out the way it did. I was surprised. You probably were too. But Wisconsin voters were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is maybe a step too far with Francesca.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson for candidates. Don't go crazy like Bobby Kennedy Jr. Don't say, if you find yourself about to say something loony that he would say, cancel Thanksgiving, stop. Just stop.
Stop. Don't.
But the real lesson is here, if you do say things like that, you don't deserve to be governor. You just don't.
No, you
or
don't.
mayor, or
sorry.
vice president, or senator, anything. You cannot make statements like that. That's the serious part of this conversation, because it's easy. Like I said, it's easy to joke about what she said, but there's a baseline of things you should not do or say if you're running for public office, and canceling Thanksgiving is one of them. What about, everybody thinks the House is a given. You know, like you said before about until the voters speak, I'm with you on that. So until I see the House flipping, I remain cautiously optimistic. But there seems to be a real opportunity in the Senate that didn't exist 6 months ago. What do you think is going to happen there?
I mean, look, I think the only way that I can really explain this, and I'm going to do this as fast as I can, my position on this is to handicap really quickly each race.
Absolutely.
So I think, look, number one, again, we don't want to say it's a given, but Republicans have pretty much conceded that Democrats will flip North Carolina. Roy Cooper, the current governor, extremely popular in the state, has a lot of Republican support. Weak candidate on the Republican side. He's going to win that race. It's still going to be a close race. I mean, we're looking at a couple of points, but I think he flips that seat. North Carolina has been a, purplish state for a while, especially statewide. So I think he wins that one. I would handicap the second race as being Maine. The only reason being that Maine is the only state that Kamala Harris carried in 2024. Of all the states that are up for grabs in the competitive states in the Senate primaries, or Senate general elections, Maine is the only state that she carried in 2024. So Troy Jackson, obviously, we don't need to rehash everything that's happened in Maine, but he does feel like someone who represents the voters. He's a nice alternative to Susan Collins. He's relatively well known. That state is, at least in presidential elections, votes blue. So we will see what happens there. But I think that's our second best shot. Alaska, Mary Peltola, couldn't ask for a better candidate on the Democratic side. Very popular, again, has cross-partisan support. The Republicans have a weak candidate. She's raised more money. Alaska's a small state, the small electorate. All you have to do is look at Lisa Murkowski to know that this is a state that, as long as you're voting with Alaskans first, they're going to take a chance on you regardless of being a Democrat or a Republican. So I would say that's our third best shot. Ohio, maybe I would tie Ohio and Alaska. Sherrod Brown. People forget that Sherrod Brown only lost in 2024 by 2.5 points. Yep. Kamala Harris, in contrast, lost the state of Ohio by 11 points. So 8.5 point difference there. Sherrod is running ahead in the polls right now, just barely. I think it's going to be a squeaker, but Ohioans are pissed. These tariffs are affecting them. The jobs are not ideal in the state. All the issues that we're feeling nationally because of Trump are really drilling down in Ohio. So I would say that's our fourth best shot. And then, then you start looking at Tallarico in Texas. Texas has broken my heart and your heart many times, Andy. We haven't elected a Democrat statewide there in 30 years. But man, if this is the time to do it and if this is the right candidate to do it, it's James Tallarico in 2026.
I mean, it certainly looks like it's a better than real possibility. He's ahead now. So then, isn't he Tallarico by a couple of points?
He's ahead now. September and October, Republicans have a lot more money than we do. Now, Tallarico's raised more money, but when you look at the RNC versus the DNC, I don't even want to talk about the DNC and their lack of cash on hand. It makes me crazy. When you look at the fact that Trump is sitting on over $400 million in his MAGA PAC, the DSCC has raised a lot of money. The House Majority PAC, the Senate Majority PAC have raised a lot of money. Like, those committees are fine, but at the end of the day, they've got Elon, they've got Trump's MAGA PAC. They've got so much more money than we do.
Do you think Trump's MAGA PAC would ever actually go to anyone but Trump?
Well,
isn't the seats on the Qatari plane going to be stuffed with cash when he leaves in 28?
This is why I think you're exactly right. I think that at the end of the day, he's not going to spend this money.
Does he care?
But the fact that he could and it's there, and we don't have that, is my only wild card when it comes to Tallarico being up. Obviously, you've got Nebraska, you've got Kansas, you've got maybe Mississippi, you've got some other wild cards.
Josh Turek in Iowa.
Oh my God, how did I forget Iowa? Forget Iowa?
I mean,
Josh Turek in Iowa, incredible candidate. So when you look at all the races like that and you look at them one by one, and then you factor in the fact that this is not a presidential election cycle, it's a midterm, which means Trump is on the ballot, but he's not officially on the ballot, but he's still dragging down the ticket. Man, it's going to be a nail biter.
Is
it's gonna be a nail.
Darlene Graham in South Carolina a given?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. I mean, look, South Carolina, Lindsey Graham beat Jamie Harrison by a lot more than I think we expected him. Jamie Harrison raised a ton of money, a lot of national money, because a lot of people were just so pissed at Lindsey Graham for siding with Trump. They thought he was sort of like, a John McCain maverick who was willing to buck the party. And then they realized he was just whatever Trump wanted him to do, he would do. So, but still, at the end of the day, I don't remember what Jamie lost by, but it was a lot. And Jamie was a very strong candidate. So I do think that, it's oh my gosh, what's her name? Andrews, who's running in South Carolina.
Dr. Annie Andrews. Yeah, she was just on
Dr.
this
Annie
podcast.
Andrews. Sorry, she's incredible.
Yes.
She is incredible. And by the way, Jamie's a very dear friend. And I know he's a good friend of yours too. He's incredible. I do think, you've got a lot of people are moving to South Carolina, a lot of retirees, a lot of older voters. There's a huge LGBTQ community, especially in Charleston. Like, there is a strong force of Democrats in that state. And you do take somebody like Dr. Annie Andrews, who is amazing and well-known and resonant with the voters. You got a fighting chance for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Lindsey's sister Darlene has the lock on the electorate like her brother did. But I think because his death was so sudden and devastating to many people, and including a lot of his constituents, I could see some sympathy votes coming in. But I don't know. I mean, I think anything's on the table right now.
Well, I think if you look at Trump's approval rating, if you look at how the 3/4 of the country is dissatisfied with the economy and the affordability issues that they're challenged by, if you think about the Iran war, you think about all these things, and you think about the corruption, the grifting, all these unusual, to say unusual sounds like a gross understatement. I think we're going to see something in November that is equally unusual, that matches the craziness that we are seeing now. So to me, nothing is off the table. But what do you think about Michigan? What do you think his chances are against Mike
I worry.
Pence?
I'm glad you raised that because I did not talk about NEC, so I thought could flip. Haley Stevens, very dear friend of mine who, I was really sad and disappointed to see her narrowly lose that primary. Polls show that she could have beat Mike Rogers by a couple of points, and polls show that El Sayed cannot beat Mike Rogers. Things could change. Michigan's a wild state. Now, I think what does help El Sayed, I think I keep saying El Sayed, I think it's El Sayed. What helps him is, number one, Jocelyn Vinson is a very strong gubernatorial candidate. Number one. Number two, Haley being the good, strong, public servant that she is, immediately endorsed him, said she will do whatever it takes to work to elect him, even though I wouldn't be surprised if her politics are a little bit more in line with Mike Rogers. That's just my analysis, not Haley's. But I think that a lot of people who don't agree with his positioning on a number of issues, and he does not call himself a DSA candidate, but he's damn near close, may just decide to, do a Benson-Rogers split. But I don't know. We'll see. At the end of the day, why would you vote for a Republican right now in a swing? If you're a swing voter, I should say, if you're an entrenched Republican voter and you vote Republican all the time, then yes, you're likely going to still vote Republican. But if you're a swing voter, what would compel you to vote for a Republican right now? Just everything's a mess.
Yeah, right. But if I said to you, almost 2 years ago, what would make anyone vote for Donald Trump again? Knowing what we know, you'd be like, no way they're going to, and yet here we are. So these are crazy times that we're living in. But
I think that in 2024, people were so pissed about the economy. They were mad about high prices. You and I could talk a long time about why inflation was high. We had a once in a 100-year pandemic that, and our economy did not sink. Thanks to President Biden and his leadership and his team to make sure that we passed a stimulus that kept the economy afloat. But there are, of course, repercussions when you infuse cash into
Jay Powell too,
Jay Powell as well, exactly. But it was a referendum to an extent on the quote unquote Biden economy, and Trump has done nothing to lower prices.
Right.
So it's like, even if you were like, all
He's
right,
raised them.
I can't
Forget
stand
lower
Trump.
them. He's raised them. Yeah.
So he's done nothing. That's what I'm saying. Like, short of like, I mean, the only thing that they're going to be able to run on is cultural issues and painting us as all a bunch of like DSAers.
Bolshevism.
Bolsheviks, which the good thing is, Andy, as you and I both know, voters are smart enough. They are too damn smart to know that we are a large party. And when you see somebody like the president, who, as you pointed out, is corrupting the office, is grifting along with his family like we've never seen before, and is putting him and his family's priorities to make money ahead of everybody else, including their own families and their own lives, and they're caught to fend for themselves. People are just mad.
Yeah. Look, gas prices right now are the highest they've ever been in the month of August. And take that into November,
I got to tell you, I'm sitting down here in Arkansas. It's about 98 degrees outside right now. My electric bills are out the roof. I mean, I've had to kind of figure out how do I apportion my monthly expenses? And I, if I'm feeling this burden, then I know everybody else is too.
Yeah, well, you have a guy in the White House who mocks affordability and a complicit party that allows him to do it. So hopefully voters are going to revolt in 2.5 months. Great analysis, Adrienne. Always appreciate it. And come back soon and talk with me again.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.